My name again is Will Harris. I'm Vice President of EnviroPod, and with Barry Irwin, who is our Regional Sales Manager for the Great Lakes region based in Canada. A little bit of house rules before we start the actual presentation. Just so everybody knows, this webinar is going to be recorded. It will be available at a later date, but at the same time, we're going to keep this down to a 60-minute webinar and updates. The presentation and slides take approximately 55 minutes. We'd like to leave about 10 minutes for those of you in the audience to ask questions at the end of this presentation. If you would like to ask a question during the presentation, feel free to go ahead and log in a question on your screen. I'll be moderating this meeting, and I will also be checking on any questions that come up. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll be announcing those questions and then allow for Barry and I to answer them directly. This is primarily geared around a Canadian audience, which is where we have the EnviroBasin primarily installed right now and being manufactured. But we certainly welcome our guests from the USA and around the Great Lakes region on the USA side. Thank you very much for attending. This will certainly be applicable to you because we are bringing the EnviroBasin into the USA already. But right now it's available on the Canadian side of the border primarily in Ontario province. But we have them also installed in other locations around Canada. Barry will get into that in a little more detail. I'll be providing an overview about EnviroPod and the Lititrap, which is our primary product that we introduced to Canada and to North America back 4 years ago. Then from there, I'm going to turn it over to Barry Irwin, who's going to go into a deep dive into the EnviroBasin design applications and also where we have different project installations throughout Canada. And this will be an opportunity for you to see how this system has been introduced and launched. It's a real game changer of a product, but I'll go ahead and let Barry take it from there, and we'll go ahead and start the presentation here. Here we go. So a little bit about EnviroPod and who we are. EnviroPod was actually founded by two gentlemen located in New Zealand, Mr. Mike Hanna and Greg Yeoman. As you can see from the photographs here, back in 1996, the company's been around for 26 years, which started in New Zealand. EnviroPod is part of the Stormwater 360 group, which is a leading stormwater and green infrastructure manufacturers and solutions provider in the Australasia region. It's the largest Australasia catch basin insert company, as well as distributor of different stormwater technologies in that part of the world. Back about 4 years ago, both Greg and Mike ventured into Toronto and lived there for 1 year to get an idea of the market and also the issues and demand for stormwater products such as the Lititrap, and came away with quite a bit of information and that the demand was rather high, especially around Lake Ontario and the Great Lakes region. So from that point forward in the last 4 years, EnviroPod has been very much involved and engaged in providing Lititrap as well as EnviroBasin products throughout the Great Lakes region, as well as other parts of Canada, including Vancouver, Nova Scotia. We're pretty well spread out through all the provinces now throughout Canada. We also have over 60,000 Lititrap devices installed throughout the world. Many of those now are installed in the Great Lakes region, as well as where I'm located in California and spread out through the south and southeast regions of the USA, pretty much covering all the coastal regions around North America. EnviroPod in North America operates in two separate entities. We have EnviroPod Canada and we have EnviroPod USA. But it's all based as a company in California for USA distribution. And in Canada, we actually have our shipping and distribution facilities out of Mississauga. We have a staff that's accumulated over 90 years. I know I'm aging myself now, and Barry too. Over 90 years of stormwater treatment technologies. This has been our life. This has been our passion. And all of our skills and training and education has been around water quality and stormwater management. EnviroPod does offer 24/7 customer service and installation support. We not only build the product, we not only manufacture, but we do offer design assistance. We have technical support staff on hand. We also help engineers specify our products on their plans, as well as train our customers on how to easily install them and maintain them. That's all part of our service from cradle to grave. We can deliver product in 7 to 14 days for the litter trap. For the EnviroBasin, typically it's anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the magnitude of the project and how many units are being ordered in a precast catch basin type of design. We have a very strong QA QC program, and we have a filled stock of parts and components in Mississauga, as well as out of our San Diego warehouse area. We're the only manufacturer that also offers an 8-year warranty on the litter trap. No one else offers that type of warranty in the industry. And with the litter trap, it does come with a 25, 26-year plus endurable life cycle. So that's the longest in the industry. We still have litter trap devices installed in New Zealand that were first installed back 25 years ago, if that's to give you some idea of durability for the product. And again, I just mentioned this a little earlier, but EnviroPod Canada really was first established and demonstrated back in 2017 and in 2018. There's now over 1,000 litter traps installed to date around the greater Ontario region, as well as reaches out to Vancouver and Nova Scotia. In 2019, the litter trap was awarded the Best Stormwater Innovation product at that time. And then in 2020, here in California, where I'm located, the litter trap received a certification from the State Water Board for full trash capture. And then on to 2021, the EnviroBasin, which had been launched and developed in the early parts of 2021, was received a Canadian environmental technology verification, which is really critical for our clients and for engineers up in Canada. They now
Excuse me,
know
Will.
that. Yes,
Excuse me, Will,
hello.
you want to share your screen?
Oh, my screen's not being shared?
No, if you can fix that.
Sorry, that must have turned itself off. Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, you were doing great, just
How's that?
better.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great, super. My apologies. I'll go back again just briefly for those of you who have missed those slides. It's a picture of Barry, myself, Mike, and Greg, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, you probably wanted to look at the pictures and not just hear my voice at the same time. So we actually manufacture two products. One is the litter trap and the other is the EnviroBasin. I'm going to briefly go through the litter trap and then introduce Barry and bring him in to introduce and discuss updates and design for the EnviroBasin in just a moment. So this is why we're in the business in the first place. There's a major challenge around the world right now, and in many places around North America, where we're seeing a lot of boiling plastic trash debris getting into our waterways. I think everybody has heard of the Pacific garbage patch and now the Atlantic garbage patch, where you have cycles of currents that are carrying trash to central areas around the Pacific. Um, we have developed our products around preventing this from occurring, from what you're seeing in this picture here. And it's becoming a major problem. And as you probably also see, not all plastic floats to the top. It is buoyant. If you look in terms of a water column, plastic can come in different weights. And the more weight in suspended water, the deeper it can go. So this is what we are all trying to prevent, and what our audience in most cases is trying to prevent as well. The litter trap itself is a product that can fit inside almost any type of catch basin structure. It's designed to be easy to install and be retrofitted and fitted for any particular type of catch basin. These are examples showing a rectangular type of grate inlet, as well as a round manhole type of catch basin, where we use these adjustable seals that can actually be cut and fitted in place in the field that then be able to place a litter trap basket directly underneath the grate itself. We do also provide different types of liners that can be placed inside the basket for addressing specific types of particle sizes. But the primary purpose of the litter trap is to really remove and capture plastic trash and gross pollutants, even down to small particle size sediment as well. It's also designed to be easily accessible and maintainable, so you can maintain it by hand or by Vector truck, either way. We're not going to go into a lot of detail today about the litter trap, but if you want to learn more about the installation and the operation and maintenance of litter trap, I invite you to go to our website at www.enviropod.com. You'll see a number of videos as well that we provide, as well as project examples and installation guidelines as well. The design of the litter trap is really built for northern climates. We have these placed in every type of climate zone you can think of, from all the way down to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit to up to 80, 90 degrees or 100 degrees in places like Texas or in Miami or in Florida, North Carolina, where it gets rather humid and very hot. The litter trap design, as well as the materials, which are primarily made of HDPE, as well as a reinforced fiberglass material. It's there to withstand not only different types of climates and heat or cold, but also to not allow any cracking as well. And it is chemical proof, meaning that the material will not corrode from different types of chemicals that may enter into the catch basins as well. So mentioned earlier, we make different types of performance liners for the litter trap that can be fitted inside and placed inside the basket. They can be easily adjusted and tied together around just underneath the internal bypass of the basket frame itself. These liners are washable and reusable. They typically have a life cycle of anywhere between 5 to 8 years before you would ever need to replace a liner, but they're relatively inexpensive. We're talking a $30, $40 item if you did need to replace it in that period of time. So far, we have not had to replace liners here in California, where we use them extensively. But other parts around the country, it does not necessarily always need to use a liner. It really depends on the particle size and the pollutant of concern you're attempting to capture and address and mitigate. The construction liner is our latest liner that we have, especially for use during construction. The liner can go inside the basket during construction, where the litter trap basket and the system itself can be installed in a catch basin, so that during construction, any sediment particles or erosion that may occur, which typically it does occur during construction, all that sediment can be captured in a construction liner and then can be easily removed or accumulated over time during the construction. And then once the construction is over, you can easily remove the construction liner and allow the litter trap to do what it does, and that's capture post-construction stormwater pollutants that would be a normal, just a standard type of stormwater post-construction BMP. We have done quite a number of litter trap projects now with University of Toronto. Their trash team has been using the litter trap pretty extensively around the Greater Toronto and Ontario region. We actually we support members of Operation Clean Sweep. Operation Clean Sweep is made up of the plastic and chemical manufacturers that have joined this part of their mission to reduce the amount of plastic that is entering into waterways. That we're talking about raw plastic, otherwise known as nurdles or pellets, that are typically roughly about 2 millimeter in size. The litter trap is typically placed inside at industrial locations at their catch basins, where they trap and capture the pellets or nurdles at that area. From there, the university has been coming into a number of different facilities to count the number of pellets that are being trapped and captured by the litter traps. And then that all leads to a case study or report, which goes out to the public at large, for those to find out really what is the extent of the problem in terms of the generation of pollutants that are getting into the storm drain at these facilities. And we want to thank members of Operation Clean Sweep for utilizing litter trap at their facilities, along with the University of Toronto trash team. It seems to have worked in a great relationship with them, and we're looking forward to continuing that on. Where we have litter trap, well, we have it pretty much everywhere now across Canada. From Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, long list of different municipalities that are utilizing the litter trap, retrofitted inside municipal catch basins, as well as at private developments. And of course, I mentioned earlier in industrial facilities, but whether it's in Halifax or in Vancouver, BC, and areas in between, we're starting to see more and more litter traps being placed and retrofitted inside existing catch basins, which is very exciting news for us because we're then on our mission of preventing trash and debris from entering waterways. And the typical type of municipal project we've done in the past is like at the city of Barrie. Started out actually as a pilot project utilizing just a handful of litter trap devices inside a handful of catch basins down by the waterfront in the Lake Ontario area. Then over a year's time, the city recognized that the litter trap devices were operating quite well and they were easier to maintain than other downstream types of systems that they had already placed, and it was less costly. They actually have two individuals that would just be able to go over to each catch basin, lift the grate, pull out the litter traps, then remove the debris, put the empty litter trap back into the catch basin. It was all took about maybe 30 seconds. Well, that led to a much larger project in which now there are some well over 100, around 110 litter traps throughout the downtown city of Barrie area. And the primary purpose there is to prevent things like cigarette butts or other plastic materials and straws that end up accumulating inside their downstream receptors. The litter traps have been easy to maintain for the city, and now other cities are recognizing this, and that's why the litter trap is gaining such popularity. Another project we've done in the past year is when at St. John's Harbor, there's some 38 litter traps now installed down by the harbor area. And again, this is a very cold region, so it does lead to the results that the litter trap can withstand very cold weather without cracking. And the information we've received back from Fisheries and Oceans, as well as from the city along the coastlines, are that the litter traps are operating well. They're continuing to operate at those locations, and they intend to use more. We do provide the litter trap at quite a number of commercial applications, meaning that whether it's a retail store or it's a shopping mall or parking lot, as we do in California here, the litter trap is used extensively, whether it's a grate inlet, a curb inlet, or any kind of type of catch basin it's used at. This is also one of the things we've done over many years of doing studies and finding out what is really being generated at commercial locations. And we have a lot of data that's been accumulated both from our data, from our team, as well as from independent third parties about what is really being captured and what the weight and the volume of these materials. We're finding out also that it can be very seasonal in terms of the amount of accumulation of material that goes on, whether it's in the summer or in the spring. But overall, we have seen a very large expansion of the use of the litter trap at commercial applications, as shown by the amount of maintenance or the least amount of maintenance it takes to maintain a litter trap. So with that in mind, I'm going to stop here. That's my introduction on the litter trap, and I'll be moderating the rest of this presentation. And I'm going to introduce Barry, if I can get to my screen for a second here, and be able to hand this off to Barry. And let's see, Barry, I think it's all yours now.
Thank you very much, Will.
So without further ado, here is Barry Irwin.
Thank you very much, Will. So I'm going to share my screen so we can see what's going on here. Is that showing properly, Will? Can you tell me?
Yes, better than my first set of slides.
Okay, so here we are. We're going to talk about the EnviroBasin now. Will has given us a real good explanation and background on the litter trap. but the EnviroBasin is basically at-source sediment and trash capture device. Now, the question we ask is, why EnviroBasin? Well, Will talked about the plastic, and that is definitely a pollutant of concern. But unfortunately, most municipalities do not regulate all the trash in stormwater. However, they do regulate sediment, demanding in most municipalities here in Ontario 70 or 80% removal of TSS from stormwater. And the reason is sediment is a big pollutant of concern. It causes billions of dollars in environmental damage every year. It fills up storm drains and catch basins. I was speaking with a municipality yesterday who said they told me about a Vector truck that runs around their town all summer, pumping out sediment from their system, from the pipes. And also sediment, it gets into stream beds because the stormwater goes down in the catch basin into a pipe, and it heads off to a head wall somewhere on a riverbank, a stream bank, or on a lake shore. So in these places, sediment destroys the natural food chain. It destroys the natural habitat, declines in fish population result. And also we have all the nutrients that are transported in the sediment that cause all the algae blooms and other problems like that. And the reason is we live, most of us, in an urban area. So we're all stuck together in very tight spaces with lots of impervious surfaces. So we generate what's called city dust. Some people call it city dust. That's all the dirt and the pollutants that build up on these surfaces. Heavy metals, microplastics from tires, decaying organic matter, pet droppings, all kinds of chemicals, bacteria, pathogens, and hydrocarbons. Stormwater can be more polluted than raw sewage. So here's where the EnviroBasin comes in, and we'd like to show you what it is. It's basically at-source sediment and trash capture. So at the top of the EnviroBasin, you see we already have the Lititrap installed, and the Lititrap is designed to capture the plastic and all the gross pollutants, everything 5 millimeters and up. But the EnviroBasin also has other components, so we can modify the flow of the water and capture and retain sediment here in the sump. So this is a device that's pre-engineered. It's a manufactured solution. It's plug and play, as you see, and it has been tested and verified with the ISO 1400 standard, the ETV oil and grit separator protocol, the same one that any OGS would be subject to, and it will remove more than 60% of the TSS in the catch basin. That's at source. So what we're proposing here is a real alternative to a standard catch basin, but also an alternative to OGS systems, which are downstream. We have an upstream solution here. This is what it looks like. We have a concrete catch basin with an extra large sump. It's 900 millimeters deep. We use a submerged outlet baffle that is now removable. We mount the brackets for the Lititrap in the top, the filter box, the seals, all the things that make the Lititrap work good, and then the basket. But to the basket, we add an energy deflector. We'll show you how that works in just a minute. So these are the components. The only other thing that's special here is we add an adjustable boot on the back. You pick the size. We put it on so that the contractor inserts his pipe, tightens the clamp, and it's basically installed. And the Lititrap also includes the grate at the top. So there's the functionality of the Lititrap itself. So it's really designed to capture the trash up here. And with the energy deflector, we reduce the flow velocity of that water because it can get quite ferocious inside a catch basin. And then in the sump, we're able to capture particles larger than 50 microns. So keeping them down here in the sump, that's really important. And the submerged outlet baffle plays a role in that as well. So the result is we're removing in the EnviroBasin 99% of the gross pollutants, that's everything 5 millimeters and up, and 60% of the TSS. So we're removing a heavy load from stormwater, and the finished product here that we see going down the pipe is much, much cleaner. And this is very, very cost-effective treatment to perform. So here's some elevation drawings. We have a side and a front elevation. You can see the submerged outlet baffle on both sides, and of course, the energy deflector sitting here in the bottom of the basket. Otherwise, it's just a standard LidaTrap installation in a standard style catch basin. So this is the operation of a standard catch basin without any kind of interference with a LidaTrap. You can see the water plunging from on high at 33 feet per second, hitting the sump. All of this turbulence here means that no sediment can really settle in the bottom, and anything that is there is going to resuspend. So contrast this one with the right-hand video, where we see the EnviroBasin. Now you have the LidaTrap here with the energy deflector, which is reversing the flow of the water, and it spreads that over the whole surface of the sump. There's nowhere near the same turbidity. So now those anything 50 microns and larger can settle, and we're not going to resuspend the material that has already settled in the bottom of the sump. So this is a real different take on the catch basin and the way it functions. This is some still shots from some video modeling, computer modeling that's been done for a submittal for Washington State, that is. And you can see here the streetscape at the top. We have a grate. We have the LidaTrap basket with the energy deflector. And at 4 liters per second surface loading rate, you can see the way it functions internally, and there's absolutely no disruption. So the people we're doing the modeling for, they had a design storm of 30 liters per second. So here's the modeling for 30 liters per second. And you can see that the water flows through the basket with this storm event without any problems. There's no issues. And the energy deflector is still doing its job. The water is backing up on the top nicely here on the streetscape. But we also have storms that are much larger than 30 liters per second. So here's one at 50 liters per second, which is a fairly major event. And you can see the water is backing up quite a bit here on the surface. The levels are rising inside the catch basin, but there's no impedance for the flow of the water. It's flowing right through the basket without any issues at all. And should that basket ever become full during an event like this, well, remember that the basket has an overflow all the way around the top, which is about 2 inches high, and it will handle 88 liters per second. So that's about as much water as can come through the top of the grate. So we feel we're in pretty good space here. We shouldn't be causing any issues with flooding and ponding from the catch basin, even with large storm events like 50 liters per second here. So since we first started and introduced the EnviroBasin, we started with a standard catch basin design, but we've had all kinds of demand for different models. So we have a combination EnviroBasin catch basin now, one that incorporates not only a grate, but also a side inlet. And we have also an EnviroBasin manhole model, which is sometimes required. We have one that's been designed for a ditch inlet. And these, we've sold quite a few of those this summer. And as well, we have a very popular twin EnviroBasin for a double catch basin application. These are quite popular. We've seen them specified on several projects. And we also have a junction EnviroBasin. Remembering that we can't have multiple inlets into the EnviroBasin. We can only have water coming from the surface, other than perhaps some subsoil drains here at the top. But we can't have anything disturbing the hydraulics down in the bottom. So if you want to do a junction, you either have to put another manhole or put a cavity right beside the EnviroBasin. So this is a slick way to do it, and can save some money as well, because it's one device instead of two. The EnviroBasin, as we've said, has been tested to the ISO 14034 test, which is the gold standard for ETV devices and catch basin systems, oil and grit separators. And the test results are all available on our website. The verification is posted in its entirety, and it's quite an interesting read. It tells you exactly how the test was done and the results, the standards. You can make your own judgment, but we passed the test very, very well. It's good to know that the ISO test is probably the most rigorous test. There's another one in New Jersey, Department of Environmental Protection has a test, and we are going through the process of having the EnviroBasin tested to that standard as well. So very soon, hopefully in the new year, we'll have the results of that test, and we are very confident that we will get excellent results on that test as well, because we've already passed the ISO test. So the testing for the ETV testing is done in a lab in a controlled environment, as you can see here. You can see the mock-up on the right-hand side of the EnviroBasin. It includes a streetscape way up at the top. And in the streetscape, there is a grate. And there is also a dispenser here for all of the particulates that are measured as part of the test. And the streetscape even tries to approximate the runoff coefficients that you would find. So it's fairly rigorous. These tests run for many hours, sometimes for days, in order to complete the testing. And the particle sizes are very tightly controlled. And the particle size that is a D50, I believe, of 70 microns, which is finer than what most municipalities are calling out when they ask for 70% removal. So we're getting very good results with a D50 of 70 microns. We would do much better if the particle sizes were larger. But the particle sizes being what they are, here is the test result on the graph. The blue line in the background, of course, is the spec. And you can see where the samples and the averages are right on track with what you would expect from the test. So this is the test and the same push that an oil and grit separator would be subjected to. So the EnviroBasin, it performs very well, as you can see. So the sediment capture results here on the graph show that we get over 60% capture results here at this particular surface loading rate down here. And you might say, well, that's not very much rain, but that is where most rain events happen. Just for a comparison here, if we take the City of London standard for TSS removal in catch basin or in their stormwater system, they're asking here for 25 millimeter volumes, which is very small rain event. And that's exactly where we are, right down in this area here where we get the 60%. So our device will work for 90% of the rain events where they're in this range. We will get the result of 60% or better. And it's those first rain events, those small rain events, and the first flush of rain is where most of the sediment is sent into a catch basin. So if you work very efficiently at that point, you will capture most of the sediment. And here we're capturing 60%. Even as the surface loading rate increases, you can see that we're still able to capture sediment, but maybe not as much. And this is in one catch basin. So we believe there's an efficiency here by doing it at source with a catch basin rather than sending all the water down to one device downstream where it has to work extra hard to capture all the sediment. Now, the other part of the equation here on the test is resuspension. Because if you capture something at a small rain event, and then you get a big storm come along, what does it do? It usually just washes all that sediment out. It will resuspend and scour everything in the catch basin. So the resuspension test, as part of the ISO test, they fill the sump up with a very fine flour material, and they run the test at different surface loading rates. To pass this test, you cannot exceed 20 milligrams per liter of concentration of sediment in your effluent. And you can see the results on the bar graph here show that the EnviroBasin performs exceedingly well. So in other words, what the EnviroBasin captures, it keeps. So to put this in perspective, if we go back to the City of London, where they're talking about quality requirements for 90% of the storm events, and they say you have to be able to function well at that level with your total suspended solids, that's all well and good. But if you get a big storm event and you have a device like a snout or a gauze trap, well, as soon as you get a big storm event, although that device may have captured some sediment, the storm is going to turn that catch basin into a blender and scour all of the sediment that has been collected from the small rain events and wash it right downstream. So the resuspension testing is critical part of the ISO test, of the ETV testing. And the EnviroBasin performs very well, not only at capturing, but at keeping in the sump the sediment that it captures. So this brings us to a juncture now where engineers, municipalities, developers have an option. In the past, you always had to use a downstream solution, running the catch basins into an oil and grit separator, but now you can do it all at source, capturing the trash as well as the sediment. And it might be noted as well that not all oil and grit separators are good at capturing trash. Anything that's floatable usually will go right through the baffles in these systems. So by having the LidaTrap here, we perform an extra service for any community that is using the device. So using the EnviroBasin versus using an oil and grit separator provides a lot of advantages. We'd like to just review a couple of them here. First of all, we have a very rudimentary diagram. Anybody that's in the oil and grit separator business wouldn't be too impressed, but here we have a very rudimentary diagram of an oil and grit separator. Some of these things are really large. They take up the size of an intersection. Notice the ladder rungs on here. That's a reminder that these things have controlled access requirements when it comes time to maintain them. And they must be maintained on at least a yearly basis and inspected. So it's a very expensive process. They're very large. The excavations are huge sometimes. And they also have what is the driving head requirement, which can be 50 centimeters, 60 centimeters, sometimes more or less, depending on how big the unit is. And they don't work without that because you need some force on the water to make the thing work. So that means that you have to take that into account in your elevations, measuring back from the pipe at the end of the street. And with the EnviroBasin, there is no driving head requirement because all of it takes place inside the catch basin. So you can do other things with your elevations and your grades rather than plan for a driving head. And that can be a real advantage if you have, say, rising lake level, perhaps a high water table. If you take a place like Windsor, where they're pumping the stormwater up into the Detroit River, there are places like that all over Ontario and all over Canada. And the other thing is sometimes municipalities are dealing with bedrock. Eastern Ontario, they have a lot of bedrock, and also in British Columbia. So this makes excavations a big problem sometimes when you're trying to calculate and plan for the driving head. The other thing is with EnviroBasin, you have a very shallow depth of installation, say 1.5 meters or so, and there's no confined access. The installation happens from the surface as well as all the maintenance. So it's very, very easy and less costly than dealing with some other devices. We have at EnviroBasin a tool that helps engineers and contractors to plan for the performance and the sizing of an EnviroBasin system. And we're more than happy to share that data and the information from the tool with anybody that asks. One day we hope to have it on our website, but in the meantime, the tool is working very well, and we can turn around a design project in very short order. We just need some basic data about the rain, catchment areas, runoff coefficients, all basic information, and then we're able to produce a sizing report, much like this one here. This is just an example, but it does show you the information that would be provided along with a count of the number and design style of the EnviroBasins that would be required. This is a free service, and the contractors and engineers that have been taking advantage of it tell us that this is really all they need for a submittal, and they're working. These are working very well. So you'll get the efficiency as well as the size. We'd like to talk about maintenance of the basket. Sometimes people think that it's a lot of work, but this video sort of puts it in perspective. We're able to see that lifting the grate, removing the basket can be done very easily by hand, as we see here. Putting it back and closing the grate. So two men in a pickup truck could do 80 to 100 of these a day. And we know this because we have like 60,000 baskets installed all over the world. And many studies have been done on this. So 80 to 100 baskets emptied by 2 men and a pickup truck in a day is a pretty efficient way of dealing with the maintenance on the baskets. Now, if we're dealing with using a Vactor system, you can empty the basket out with a Vactor here. We suggest a rubber boot to protect. Please don't, drop a big metal Vactor hose down inside the basket. We want to protect the webbing, but it will Vactor out all of the trash and any grit. And in this case here, we can see that this environment produced a lot of grit, which is actually being caught in the basket, which is quite interesting. And Lititrap has been known for many years for being able to capture a lot of sediment and grit. Once you get something in the bottom, it starts to stick there quite easily. But after you've emptied the basket, all you need to do is remove it. Now you have full access to the sump below. And here you can see the sediment, all the fine flour that's been collected down there, with all the zinc, the heavy metals, all those things that we mentioned earlier when we talked about that problem pollutant of the sediment. So a maintenance schedule for a catch basin, or an EnviroBasin, I should say, would be Vactoring out the sump on say a 2 or 3 year cycle versus a 1 year cycle for, say, an oil and grit separator. And the basket between 3 and 6 months would have to be checked, emptied, depending on how much loading it had been. And that's entirely dependent on the environment. So if you're finding that it needs to be emptied 2 or 3 times a year, well, that's a good thing, because that means that you're preventing a lot of trash and a lot of organic debris from going downstream. The sump in an EnviroBasin will hold about 320 liters of storage. So when you compare that to the storage in an oil and grit separator, we believe we have more storage capacity because we're multiplying the number of catch basins by this 320 liters. And we believe that's a lot of storage. So a 2 or 3 year cycle on a system involving the EnviroBasin seems quite practical. The basket itself will hold approximately 40 liters or 43 liters of trash. And you'll notice that all of this work is being done from the surface. No one has to go down a ladder inside or do any confined space access. Municipalities that are implementing the systems find that they are reducing their maintenance costs in reality. And that's because we're not seeing all these plugged pipes. The gross pollutants are captured in the basket, and the sediment is now being captured, 60% of it is being captured in the sump. So that means that we're doing a good job of reducing maintenance costs downstream. If you're emptying the sump only every 2 or 3 years with a Vactor truck, and the basket only every couple times, that means you need less maintenance and not more, because it's very expensive to unblock drains and these types of systems. And every municipality has a line item in the budget for doing this kind of work. So you can reduce this by capturing the trash and the sediment at source, right at the catch basin. EnviroBasin is also an excellent choice when you're doing pre-treatment for all kinds of different LID programs. Here's a bioretention planting with 2 EnviroBasins. If this was an oil and grit separator, you'd have one big head wall, and it's not as efficient, not as an efficient way to water the bioretention planting. You can put EnviroBasins where they're needed and put the water right into there while you're removing the sediment and the trash. That is really essential to remove, because that's what degrades these systems. And they fill up with sediment, fill up with trash, you have to dig them out and then rebuild them, and that's very expensive. So longevity and good performance here with the EnviroBasin for bioretention. Tree cells, excellent place to use EnviroBasin. We put all the effort into these cells with the design of the support systems. The soil has been calculated to quantity and type. We know exactly how to make a real healthy environment for a tree, but if we just depend on water going in the small space at the top, the tree is not going to do very well. So by giving the tree access to water from a catchment area and using an EnviroBasin, removing the sediment and the trash, what better way to water the tree and ensure its longevity and health? So here's the same idea again, using the EnviroBasin for a tree cell. Infiltration systems benefit from the EnviroBasin by a great deal. Here you can put the EnviroBasins anywhere that they're needed conveniently from your catchment area. You don't have to pipe the water off to an oil and grit separator and bring it back. And you're able to remove all the plastic and the sediment that is so destructive to infiltration chambers. You want that percolation system to work for a long time, and plastic and sediment will reduce the longevity by a big factor. In fact, they're tearing out old systems now, 20 years old, finding they're just full of plastic because they didn't use pretreatment. So EnviroBasin as pretreatment for these systems is a really excellent way to go. Here's a short video just showing you how it works with an infiltration system. So you can see that there's less infrastructure involved by using EnviroBasin here for pretreatment and an infiltration system. And it will greatly increase the lifespan and won't degrade the percolation rates here in your infiltration system. The EnviroBasin is also a great idea for sensitive environments, marine areas, waterfronts, ports, because you don't have the ability sometimes to use other types of treatment. And of course, these areas don't need the extra load from sediment from urban areas. Here's an example of a parking lot, two identical parking lots. The first on the left side is done using an oil and grit separator and four manholes, four catch basins rather, one manhole, and then we have the roof water. On the right-hand side, we have four EnviroBasins, the manhole, of course, the roof water, but the roof water we allow go straight through to this main stormwater line because it doesn't have any sediment to be treated, no trash. The EnviroBasins deal with the water from the parking lot, and so here we're able to have much less infrastructure, much less load on the site plan, and a lot less cost because of the less infrastructure. And many developers are starting to see that this is a viable alternative. And we have many projects on the boards right now where these this very consideration is being done. So keep that in mind. Pretreatment for jellyfish units. These jellyfish units and other devices like them do a great job. They'll give you very high performance rates on TSS removal, but they do not like trash and they do not like sediment. So by using EnviroBasin as pre-treatment, you will extend the life of those cartridges manyfold and save a lot of money. So where is EnviroBasin being used? We've been on the street now for about 1.5 years, and we have several projects. We'd like to highlight just 3 here. This one is in London on Southdale Road. It was a big roundabout with 34, I believe, EnviroBasins that were installed. There were some that were double catch basins, a lot of singles, and there were also some ditch inlets installed on this job. The whole program has been completed now, and the contractors tell me that they've had absolutely zero installation issues. It was just like installing a regular catch basin. And you can see that when you open up the grates on these EnviroBasins, they already have the litter trap inside, the seals are installed, and they're ready to go. We're just waiting for some stormwater here, and we'll follow up and have some more feedback on these installations in the months to come. Here's a project out west in British Columbia where there was several double catch basin EnviroBasins, and the contractor there said they were very easy to install. Set the elevations, drop them in, clamp the pipe here to the adjustable boot, and away you go. So this was a very successful project as well. In London as well, down the street from the other project, there's a lot of construction going on in that part of London. Liberty Crossing, they installed some EnviroBasins there as well. And you can see that these were just waiting for the curbing to happen. The litter traps are all installed, and they're just waiting for the pavement and the stormwater to get there, and they will perform very well. Now we're doing some interesting field testing. We have the lab results, but field testing is always appreciated by everybody in the industry. So in conjunction with the University of Western Ontario and AECOM, we have a site where we're doing on Dingman Drive, measuring very carefully the flows, the capture, and the effluents, and all the rest of it that goes into making a good field study. And right now we're capturing the background rain events on another site, capturing the data there so that we can prove out the testing here.
Barry, this
So,
is Will.
yep.
We have a couple more minutes.
This is all
and we
we're
have
at
to
the
get to
last slide,
questions.
Will.
Got it. Thank you.
So here we are at the last slide, and we just wanted to do a quick review of the benefits for the EnviroBasin. We talked about trash, 99% trash capture, 60% plus sediment capture at source. We have a device, the EnviroBasin ETV verified, and it performs the same way that an oil and grit separator at removing 60% of the TSS. Minimal hydraulic effect, no driving head requirements, very easy maintenance, very easy, can be done by hand or Vector. It results using the EnviroBasin is less infrastructure, not more. So that is the advantage of doing it at source. It's great for all kinds of low impact development. And of course, the whole thing was designed and tested here in Canada. So we know it works in the Canadian environment. We have many of them installed, and we have hundreds more on drawing boards and specifications that we're dealing with on a daily basis. We'd love to see you specify some as well. Please contact me if I can be of any assistance. And I would love to help you with any projects that you have. So we'll turn it back to our moderator, Will.
Barry, that was great. Fantastic. We do have a few questions from the audience, and we are going to try to keep this to the top of the hour if we can. If it runs over a little bit, please hang around and stay with us. One of the questions that was asked was, will this slide presentation be available on PDF? Yes, it will be available. If you send an email to Barry at barryi@enviropod.com, you will be able to, and your contact information, he'll be able to accommodate you on sending a shorter version of the PDF. Obviously, it will not have the videos that you saw earlier, but Barry will take care of that. The other is, just so you know, for those engineers that are out there who are interested in getting credits or CEU credits for attending this webinar does qualify for CEU credits. Please send in your contact information to Barry, and we will provide you with a CEU certificate for attending this webinar. Thank you again for attending as well. With that, Barry, I'm going to ask a first question to you, and I think I can help you answer this question, but I'll let you take the first whack at it. But how does the EnviroBasin cost compared to a standard catch basin installation? Like any good engineer, we always ask, well, it all depends. And pricing can change, and pricing can also is based on quantities. If you have 40 or 50 catch basins on a project, and they're all going to be turned into EnviroBasin catch basins, and the standard type of catch basins that we currently manufacture, there is a major discounted cost to that accumulation, obviously. So it can be significantly discounted for more catch basins that are required on the project. The other factor you need to compare this with is what is the EnviroBasin replacing? Well, typically it's replacing a big giant stormwater separator of some kind. So, and also along with that, it's replacing a lot of the piping and lines that would go to a separator. So this is where the game changer part begins, is that when you compare costs, you have to compare costs with what it is you are trying to achieve in terms of water quality devices. And it has been shown that the EnviroBasin, especially in larger numbers, easily can save money and cost versus using standard catch basins and one or two giant separators. That's what we're there to also help prove to you on that. We look forward to any project opportunities that we can share those type of costs too. Is that a good answer, Barry?
Yeah, pretty good, Will.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. That's the only, actually, one of the question I have is, can this accommodate custom municipal grates? Barry,
Uh,
can EnviroBasin accommodate custom grates?
if they can be made, we can accommodate them. The grate is really not the important part. It's something that sits on top. In London, for example, they have the fish grate. Other places just use a standard grate. There's several models and designs. In Quebec, they use a grate that's sort of adjustable up and down as the seasons change and the frost heaves. So yeah, we can accommodate all kinds of different grates. That's just an adaptation.
I think you have some photos, I believe, right, of some custom grates that were on EnviroBasin. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have some.
Okay, great. So those are the only questions I see in the meeting chat room. If you would like to ask any questions, I'm not sure if you all have access to your microphones or can speak, but please, if anyone has a question and they have their microphone turned on, now's the time to ask. We've got a couple of more minutes. Don't all come at once. No other questions at all out there? I believe that they can share a microphone. I think they can, at any way. Well, Barry, you did such a good job that, well, there is a question that just came in. Does the EnviroBasin, they said filter in this place, does the EnviroBasin remove 60% TSS? Only 60% TSS, or can they do better?
Well, the EnviroBasin, as I said before in the presentation, it's tested to the ISO standard, which uses a D50 of 70 microns. So municipalities everywhere have a standard. They'll say we want 70 or 80% removal rate, but what is the standard particle size they're using? It seems to be different in every municipality. So yeah, the EnviroBasin could do better with a larger particle size. It will capture more. So yeah, but it's kind of a relative issue. So we have to go with the standard, the ISO standard to which it's tested. But that's pretty severe, small particle size.
I think the major message here is that the EnviroBasin has been proven to show equal or greater removal efficiencies than compared to separators, because basically the testing protocol is a similar type protocol to other protocols around North America, including those, excuse me, those in New Jersey, and protocols in other parts of the country related to TSS removal by separators. It's shown and it's verified that the EnviroBasin can meet that particular removal efficiency standard. Good question here, Barry. I got another one. What about oil capture?
All right, we did not test the EnviroBasin for oil capture. However, that does a separate test, and there's a talk of doing that down the road. But in the meantime, we do have another solution for that with some oil absorbent booms that are made of basalt fibers, I should say, and they will absorb 2 liters of oil each boom, and it takes two booms put to put around the top of the litter trap in the top of your catch basin. But if somebody did come along and dump 4 liters of crankcase oil down in a catch basin, which can happen, we still believe the oil would float on the surface because we're using a submerged outlet baffle. So it should sit on the top until somebody came along with a vacuum truck and pumped it out. But we cannot make a claim on that because we do not have the test data to back that up currently. So down the
Nor
road we
nor
will.
was it nor was it provided in the protocol as
That's
well.
right.
There is no oil grease capture testing protocol from the environmental testing verification program from Canada. Here's another question that just arrived. And by the way, these are all great questions. Keep them coming. We got time. How soon will you have Gould approval from Washington State DOE for pre-treatment? Ha ha! Great question. I see a pilot use right now. We do. We have a pilot use level designation. As you know, I think I can help answer this question, Barry.
Go ahead.
Being familiar with the Washington State Department of Ecology testing protocols and how things move rather slowly, it could take anywhere from 6 months up to a year to achieve general use level designation. May come earlier because we have so much test data now. But we only move as fast as the wheels that turn at the Washington State Department of Ecology. And typically it's a 6 month to a year. That's even an early type of process to achieve general use level designation. But the good news is we're on that path. Hope that answers your question on that. Any more questions? If you're not able to use your microphones, feel free to come into the chat room. We're running a little bit over now. I see that we still have 45 in the audience. Thank you for hanging in there. But I think that's about it, Barry. I can't see any more questions, but we got a very good audience and they're awake and they're asking great questions.
I've already got many requests here on email for the certificates and the presentation, so we'll be sending those out in the days to come.
Great. Thank you, Barry Irwin. You did a great job, I must say. I want to thank our audience. Again, this is Will Harris. If you have any questions or you need to reach out to us, Barry, you want to show that slide that has your contact information on there one more time for being able to send Barry an email or a phone call as well. But if you want to send Barry an email, it's barryi@enviropod.com. Barry's not showing our toll-free number. We do have one. It is 877-651-0566. Again, that's 877-651-0566. You can reach us anywhere from Canada or from the USA. Barry's at extension 2. And you can reach out to Barry by phone that way if you like. And thank you for attending very much. We will have this webinar up and running on our website here in the next week or so. But in the meantime, please send Barry your email questions. And I want to thank the audience again and thank you, AG, whoever that may be, for your thank you. And I also want to thank Nicola Horgarth, who has been helpful in putting this presentation together. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank one of our founders, Greg Yeoman, who got up very early in the morning right now in New Zealand to join us today. So thank you very much. You all have a great Christmas, wonderful holiday. And we look forward to working with you all for 2024. Bye now.